Right, everyone, it seems like we are at the hour mark, so let's go ahead and start. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the AAP Road to Residency webinar for international medical graduates and students interested in PM&R. Today's session was designed specifically for IMGs, and we're so glad to have you all with us tonight. First, I'd like to thank the American Academy of Physiatrists for supporting this event and the Pathways in PM&R IMG Committee for organizing it. My name is Paul Aboud, a recent medical graduate from Lebanon, currently serving as a research scientist at the University of New Mexico School of Medicine. I have the privilege of moderating today's session and would like to introduce my fellow colleagues from the Pathways in PM&R IMG Committee, SJ, an MD from South Korea, and Emily, an MD from Taiwan, and Norman, a PGY1 from Harvard Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital. We are honored to be joined by a panel of distinguished speakers, ranging from attendees, fellows, and residents, all of whom share international backgrounds and experiences. Here's how tonight's session will flow. We've prepared a set of guiding questions that I'll raise to the panel. Some of these come directly from the attendees, while others are drawn from previous sessions where we noticed a lot of interest. We'll also leave time for audience questions, so please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box. We are joined by 7 speakers. I'll go through them one by one, and speakers, as I call on you, please feel free to introduce yourself. Let's start with Dr. Dan Pierce.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dan Pierce. Sorry, I'm halfway lost my voice. Hopefully it'll last for the next hour, but I'm a academic physician at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. I went to St. George's University, one of the Caribbean medical schools. And so although I'm a US citizen, I applied as an international medical graduate. And I'm here. I'm part of the AAP's Medical Student Educators Council, and I'm very happy to join you all today.
Dr. Hana Azizi.
Hi, everyone. I'm a pediatric rehab physician at Columbia University Medical Center in New York City, so I'm an international graduate. I graduated from Shiraz Medical School in Iran. I also did an MPH in Tehran School of Public Health, and then I did my residency here and fellowship, and I stayed in New York. So yes, I'm international graduate as well. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Julie Muché.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Muché, and I'm with the Lovelace UNM Rehabilitation Hospital and Pain Clinic. I'm a pain physician, physiatrist, and I am an international medical graduate, just like Dan. I also am an IMG, as I went to American University of the Caribbean in St. Martin, and then did my training. Surgery was my first year at Creighton in Nebraska, and then my last 3 years of rehabilitation were at Loyola in Chicago.
Dr. Vera Tsetlina.
Hi, everyone. I did my medical training back in Moscow in Russia. And then I actually have a previous career in pediatric oncology back there. And then after moving here, I've transitioned to pediatric rehabilitation. And I was fortunate to do the residency at NewYork-Presbyterian and Cornell and Columbia, where then I stayed for pediatric rehab medicine fellowship under close supervision of Dr. Azizi, who is present here. And now I'm an attending at Westchester Medical Center.
Dr. Ricardo Fuentes-Saavedra.
Or like the New York crowd, I feel. I am a MD from Columbia. I did my medical school back home in the National University of Columbia. I also worked before coming to residency in rheumatology and internal medicine. And I did my residency in physical medicine and rehabilitation at the Montefiore Medical Center. And I'm currently doing my fellowship in performing arts medicine in the University of North Texas in Fort Worth. But coming back to Montefiore as one of the attendings for the electrodiagnostic medicine department.
Dr. Mustafa Dadurgali.
Thank you, Paul, and the rest of the team for organizing this event. Hi, everyone. My name is Mustafa. I'm a PGY2 PM&R resident at Yale School of Medicine. I'm originally from Turkey. I did my med school there. I started orthopedics residency, and then I decided to pursue my medical career in the United States. Came to Boston, did like 1 to 2 years of research at Spalding, and then matched to PM&R residency at Yale. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
And Dr. Norman Pan.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining this event. I'm the most junior person, I guess, on this panel. I'm so honored. I graduated from China, where I did my medical school, where I also did like 2-year orthopedic residency over there. Then a little bit complicated, I did like 3 or 4 years PhD in Oslo. Then I came to the US just 3 years ago, did a Master of Public Health at Harvard, then get a research job at Texas. It's all over the place. And eventually, very luckily, last year, I get matched to Spalding Rehab. And I'm currently at PGY1 at Metro West. It's in Framingham. Something I forgot to share. I also did my clinical rotation at Columbia with Dr. Vera and Dr. Hana Azizi. That's a wonderful experience that helped a lot of my application. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, speakers. And with that, let's get started. We will begin with a set of general introductory questions and then delve deeper into the more specific questions. The first question is a residency training in my home country regarded as valuable clinical experience in the PM&R match process?
I think maybe Vera, you did another residency. I mean, you were specialized in Russia. Do you think it was valuable?
Yes, I think so. I think it was, I think as long as you can frame it in a meaningful way in the resume, so that you have a meaningful path to where you're going. So when I was applying, for example, I was expressing interest in pediatric oncology rehab, which is a big passion of mine, and I do quite a bit of research in it. So this kind of was, it wasn't just that I was a pediatric oncologist and now all of a sudden I want to do rehab and I want to do pain medicine. No, I was a pediatrician and then I transitioned. So I kind of was able to explain why I got where I got and why do I want to be where I want to be. And I think that was a meaningful addition, definitely. So I was viewed not just as an IMG who is recent grad and was just applying, but I was viewed as someone who has a vision and has an idea of what I want to achieve in the future. So I do think it was valuable in my case. And definitely in terms of my kind of shaping and forming what I do now and the way how I see patients is definitely aiding, my experience is definitely aiding to the picture for sure. So nothing goes unnoticed and missed.
I mean, I'm involved in residency interviews and I'm also the fellowship director. So I agree completely with Vera. It has to be somehow related or somehow a good vision included in the application process. But if it's like very unrelated, someone, for example, doing gynecology and suddenly here changing to rehab, and also then it's like they think, okay, like they don't know what they are doing. Basically, it seems that person does not have any clear goals. So it has to be somehow related. And so like, for example, Vera did pediatric oncology, and here she did pediatric rehab, and she's focused also a lot on cancer rehab, one of her passions amongst others. So it has to be somehow related. Or Norman did ortho, or I think there was someone as Mustafa did ortho also. Somehow it's musculoskeletal, right? So it somehow has to be related.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that with Dr. Azizi and Dr. Tsetlina. I've also participated in the review committee for my residency program, and we value greatly the prior experiences, as they said very specifically, is well put in your CV. It does have to do a lot on how you portray yourself. You have to understand that when we review the application, you're just a piece of paper for us, right? And so that only communication we have with you is that piece of paper. It needs to be well put together, well intentional. It needs to tell us that story of why you want to be a physiatrist. And so if your past is not in physiatry, it needs to show us that specific pathway. It needs to show us that you really want to do this and how that background is going to help us determine that you're going to be a physiatrist. The only intention of this piece of paper is for us to determine if we can train you in this field, right? If you're going to come into this program, do you have that potential that we can help you to develop your your skills in the rehabilitation spectrum of care? So you need to really make it clear from the applications. But it is absolutely useful. As I worked in rheumatology before, has helped my practice tremendously through residency. It made my residency training much easier for sure. But also what I do in my daily basis, it made it easier for me to evolve the skills to a much higher setting of perfection into what I can do. So of course it helps, but it has to be guided.
All right, thank you, speakers. Building on that question, do programs value applicants with additional degrees or certifications, such as ultrasound training, a background in physical therapy, or experience in yoga or acupuncture? Do these credentials make a meaningful difference in the selection process?
Say definitely. I'm also on the committee of reviewing applications for potential residents, and any extra effort that the student is making or the previous resident is making is very helpful and like adjunctive to what we do for rehabilitation. So the extra efforts for extra certification also, do well gleaning, that they're interested in rehab and that's part of their treatments and they have a better understanding and they're interested in it and they're passionate about it. So I think it's always helpful to have adjunctive certifications.
I would agree with that. And I would also add that, especially if your certification is your background in physical therapy or in a specific field that's related to rehabilitation, be prepared to be held to a higher standard. The conversations that you have in the interviews with the people in rehabilitation, it needs to be at that level, right? I can completely excuse a researching graduate that maybe got a little bit of a 1 month rotation rehabilitation, not to understand a lot of what we do, or like just to be curious and maybe like that desire to learn more, to be the drive to be into rehab. But if you have a degree in physical therapy, you clearly know what rehabilitation is. So that needs to be well put together in your personal statement, in your CV. Show me that you have that experience. Show me that you have that background that I can get interested to you, right? We already know that we have maybe a little bit less opportunities since like the sponsoring institution has to have a visa program for us to call you in if you need that sponsoring. So it makes it difficult and your opportunities to be like evaluated in your CV. Then use that extra lenient point on your evaluation to make us understand how that's going to help you better in your rehabilitation training, right? How that broadens your view of what you will be doing as a physiatrist in the future. You need to think ahead a little bit and put it in words in both your personal statement and your CV so that we can anticipate that you just didn't do that, but you did it intentionally to make it better for your training.
I agree.
And also, I think it's important to remember, and it looks like a couple of questions we're going to start off with are asking about, things to strengthen, applications and CVs and such. The thing that we have to, say for all of these questions, at the end of the day, every program is a little bit different. Every program director is a little bit different. And so, we're not speaking for every single program. And so there are some program directors who are going to say, oh, that's a strength. And for the exact same thing, there are going to be some other program directors say, that's a weakness. It all depends on what the program and the program director are looking for. And so it's kind of hard to say dichotomous, is it a good thing or a bad thing for a lot of these questions. But I think what some of the moderators have been saying is, again, one specific thing, it can be a strength to certain programs, to certain program directors. But whatever it is, make it a strong narrative, help it tell your story. And that's how you can kind of sell yourself. Because it's a little bit hard to say, oh, is it going to help me or not? Just because every program director is going to feel a little bit differently. And some will think it's a benefit. Some people don't care one way or another. And some people say it might not help. Just because everybody's looking for a little bit different thing.
I would say these are not like the main criteria that someone would choose like for a for someone for a residency. They are the main criteria that you have to pass through that. And if after that, of course, these are just still, strengths, but not the main selection criteria. That's like interesting. Wow, this person also has a certificate in yoga and very experienced in ultrasound or something else, but it just adds more attractiveness to you and your personality and over to you, but not much to application, I think.
All right, thank you very much, speakers. On to our next question. How do program directors view gaps in training or years spent outside formal residency programs with an extended gap period from year of graduation to a PM&R application submission limit someone's chances in the match process, building on the previous question?
I can speak of that of experience. I graduated like when there was like more than 5 years after my graduation when I came to US. And so even though like I had, as soon as I came here, I did all my like USMLE steps in less than 1 year. I had really, really good scores. And I would think, okay, they say, okay, she's MD, MPA, she has great scores and she's so motivated. But I think the application process somehow just filtered me, just they have this computer that if your graduation is more than 5 years, basically you get filtered. Then it comes to what to do. So if it happens, then you have to find programs that are more likely to take those graduated more than 5 years, or somehow they should know you. Then because it's otherwise, as Ricardo was saying, it's just like, it's a paper or it's a computer selection process. It doesn't get to even their attention when the computer filters you. The program is like application more than 5 years filters. It's like score less than this filtered. So it matters. I mean, I didn't have any gap in terms of not doing anything, but it was the years after my graduation was more than 5 years, even though I was working and even though it was not that I didn't have the opportunity to come here earlier.
Yeah, I want to add to that, Dr. Azizi, and something what Dr. Pierce was saying as well. Every program director has a different criteria. Like they try to consensus when they get together in like meetings like AAP and AAPM&R, they discuss this kind of things and try to make it standard. But just to give you a perspective of what we go through on the other side, right? The application day comes and we get 600 applications, 700 applications. So as much as sometimes we really try very hard having a committee and splitting the applications to read through, we need to use certain filters to determine which candidates we need to evaluate, right? And just to give you even more perspective, as the cycles go on, and especially in that specific year of 2022, where we had a double, triple day applications, when we really noticed PM&R becoming way more competitive, we're getting very high quality candidates, not only with very high scores, but with tons of research behind, like, a lot of more people being interested in the field. So don't feel bad because if you're not getting a lot of interviews that you're not a good candidate. It's just that it's sometimes a very specific policy on the programs and how we're getting these applications with like tons of competitive candidates. So it is difficult from that perspective where like if you have a big gap, they're going to use that as one of the filters and try not to have you in. But if you have explained your gap, if you have done something productive throughout that gap, and if you hopefully have a connection to the program, having rotations in observerships where you can like make a connection and show your value, then they might help you overlook that gap, right? That they will know you more as a person, as a candidate, more like holistically, There are a few programs that do a little bit of more holistic review in that way, but it's just, as I said, a numbers game is something really difficult. Like if I had 600 applications, how am I going to read them all, right? So it's important to understand that perspective so that it's not personal. They're not calling you not because you have a gap and that's like terrible. It's just that they use this kind of criteria as a way to filter to try to get the candidates that they consider are going to be more successful.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to our next question. From a program's perspective, what challenges or concerns are most commonly associated with IMG applicants?
You mean, Paul, from a program director's perspective, or?
I think right now the toughest thing is the visa situation going on in the United States can be a big barrier for the IMG applicants. That's so unfortunate, but that's what I think. So
some programs, they do not take certain visas, some do, and it depends on like the area, the state. I agree with Mustafa. Yes, that's recently, especially, I think that's one of the main issues with taking IMG graduates is the visa, which is for like not only for residency, for everyone coming.
I would add to that it's, again, as we've said a little bit of times already, it's very relative to the programs, right? Some program directors have had the experience to work with phenomenal IMGs, giving like a good, understanding of the perspective of the IMG, right? Like different than other candidates in the United States. Like we've had past experiences that come with a variety of colors. Residency, some of us, many of us, you graduate residency and then you graduate medical school so you can work as a general practitioner, and that's a kind of experience that most of the US students don't have, right? And so how is that put in your CV to make them understand that it's a different perspective of what people normally do on the general bulk of applications? But some resident program directors see that into the positive way and like read into that, try to get a perspective of it. So some of the ones that have worked with IMGs in the past have that understanding of the application or the difference between an IMG and a non-IMG applicant, and get to understand that perspective. I don't think they consider it a red flag, but they just the lack of understanding, if they haven't had that experience in the past, just makes it difficult for them to like level the playing with US applicants. And so it is unfortunate, but it's the reality that some program directors of the multiple programs in the United States haven't worked with IMGs and don't know how to level up those things with other applicants, and that's just the game. So it's important for you to understand that they just don't like you just because. It's just that it's sometimes the lack of experience of that program director to give that a fair opportunity, a fair read. But as far as from what I know, they don't see it as a negative. It's just probably that lack of understanding of that IMG experience, probably.
All right, thank you. Any additional thoughts? Great. Moving on to the more subject-specific questions. As for research experience, is there a certain number of publications that's considered good enough for PM&R, and does quality matter over quantity?
I have to say, I've been very surprised at how much research has been done by the most recent applicants over time. I was amazed. And some applications have 10, 20, 30. I'm like, when do they have time for any of this? It's amazing. And then some have 3, and 3 is still not bad, but it's like a reflection of the proportion and the applicants that are also applying at the same time. And so I don't think there's a certain quality, the fact that you are actually participating and doing research is actually very positive. Of course, if you're a first author, that might give you a little edge, if you have 10 papers that are first author versus your last author. Not to say again that it's a bad thing. I think it's great to be, involved in research, and the applications are just getting more competitive, I would say. And so, anything that's more related to our field, I think is more the quality that we're looking for, not just something that is completely great, but not tangible to what we are doing in rehabilitation. So I think it matters the drive of the research too.
I would also say if it's possible to publish with someone who is in the US, who is a physiatrist in the US, that's for sure. That brings up opportunity to talk about how you got involved with that research, and that's definitely, I think, attractive because it kind of gives you foot on the door, so to say. So that's what I would aim for if it's possible. And even if it's a poster, you still have those names that people know, so that makes a difference.
I know I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry, but I just want to add something to that. And it's now the game, and the reason most of the program directors have selected to embrace the signaling is personalization, right? So what Dr. Tsetlina is saying is very important. If I did a paper with Dr. Azizi, and Dr. Azizi went to my residency program, let's say I'm the program director of Montefiore, well, I know Dr. Azizi, right? We're friends. Like, she trained with me. We went like whatever, right? And so if you did a paper with her, like I can pick up a call and say like, hey, Dr. Azizi, like this candidate, like I know you work with her. How is she? Like, I'm curious because I'm kind of like on the fence to call her or not. Or like I got her to an interview, but I just want to talk about this person, right? So the more so if your work, it's intentional, again, that intentionality is extremely important. And then there's programs that have maybe a little bit more interesting IMGs, like you working specifically towards those or with people in those, or people who know that process a little bit more, you're gonna have better chances, right? If those people who can put a good work with you, or who know you as a candidate, who can give a good reference, are going to be the best way to walk into, like, have more personalized. If the work that you do is extremely important in the pediatric rehabilitation world, and you're applying to those programs that have stronger pediatric rehab, it makes sense, right? Like, you are looking to fit into, to match. You're looking for your skills to enrich that program, and for that program to enrich your training, right? Instead of like, I'm just applying to everything, I'm just doing everything to just get in, right? So personalization, individualization is the key now to stand out.
I totally agree. So if someone does like scattered work, a lot of work, but not focus and not having really goals for that, it doesn't get you anywhere. You do a lot of work, but at the end, it's not going to help you. Instead, as like Dr. Tsetlina and Ricardo, I'm going to say your first name. It's okay, Dr. Fuentes. They mentioned, or we go on first name for all of us. So as they mentioned, like it's better to be with someone in US, completely agree, than like in our home countries. Like if you look at two of our residents here who have matched to great programs, for example, Mustafa and Norman, they did some research here. Like Norman did MPH, and after that rotated with different, like with us and also in New York. So he had some background here, some letters from people here. And the same as Mustafa, he did again at, I think, in Boston, Harvard, if I remember correctly. So he did, again, some research work, postdoc research or research. So it has to be with someone who can help you, as Ricardo said, like who can give you a letter, who can later, advocate for you and say, oh, I worked with this person and they are really good, or they're, and then also your name will be in a publication here. I don't think we look at like the number of publication, but any interest in research is better than someone who hasn't done anything. But again, just instead of like doing a little like research with this person, that person, this person, do it with someone who's going to help you. Don't waste your time and energy.
Yeah, I totally agree. As a person who benefits from doing research with Dr. Tsetlina and Dr. Azizi, I gain tons of help. I guess both of them help me with my interview, help me get poster on the conferences, and what I would say, so the question is about the quality and the quantity. I didn't do anything that fancy with both of them. We did a poster, case report. That's it's a good learning experience for me, get deeper into the field. Also, we can have constant conversation among like several months, and we become friends afterwards. We need to talk about whether we go to travel to that conference, something like that, which also helps. And in terms of like quality, I personally feel like we are a very open-minded field. It doesn't need to be some fancy journal, but it needs to show your understanding of the field and show your goal, why you are doing this project, and most importantly, what do you plan to do in your residency. And the other layer would be, what's your ultimate goal? If you do research, are you going to be an educator or physician scientist, or you're gonna go to private? So you need a story. If you have like tons of paper, 20, 30, you're gonna tell me you wanted to be an educator at least, maybe a physician scientist. And what's your plan? What's your plan for the residency? What's your project? Are you going to apply for NYHK in your fellow year or PGY4? What's your plan? You need to be prepared for that. So that's all my understanding, but I agree with everybody. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for such amazing input, everyone. I will go forward and tackle the interview preparation questions. This is a hot topic right now, right before interview season. So our first question for the interview preparation section would be, how did you prepare for behavioral or situational interview questions, such as tell me about the time?
The time? What do you mean, Paul? I didn't understand it. Tell me about the time, you mean? You ask?
So situational interview questions such as tell me about yourself, tell me about the time, certain questions.
I know our residents at Lovelace University in New Mexico, they actually do have a prep session like with attendings as far as the residents. So that might be helpful for, a student to work with attendings on their rotation and asking them, what questions do you ask, and have them prepared that way, because there are some standard questions that we have that might be helpful and make them successful at the interview, and not sideswiped by a question like that.
I
Sometimes
think
you
it's,
ask.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
please
No,
go ahead.
It's okay.
I think it's also easy for the IMGs to find those kind of situations, because most of the IMGs are usually doing some like clinical practice or like some residency experience in their own country. Most of the American graduates are coming from their medical student experience. So there are like 10, 15 generic questions for those kind of situations. And like as someone who did have a residency experience in my own country, I did have like a lot of different situations, and then I kind of like handle those things in the right way. So I think the key is to like have those questions, most asked questions, and then think about what you had in the past in your experience, and then make up a good story that you can present your characteristic, your personalities in those questions.
I think it's also important to remember that the people who are interviewing you, they're human. They're not going to remember every single thing that you tell them. So when you're going into the interview, you want to think to yourself, what are my, top few, 2, 3, 4 greatest qualities that I want every single interviewer to hold on into their mind at the end of the interview. So whenever they ask a question such as this, think about it to yourself, okay, so what are those top 2, 3, 4 things that I want them to know about me? And then tell a story that kind of or that demonstrates those great qualities about you. So tell me about a time where where you had to overcome something difficult, or you had to work in a team, or you had a disagreement with a coworker. Just think about in your mind, okay, so what are the things that I want them to gain from this interview? And tell a story that highlights one of those couple of things that you want them to always keep in the top of their mind, so that when they try and think about you a month, 2 months, 3 months later, that's going to be the thing that comes to your mind, and that story highlights that great aspect about yourself.
Yeah, I think Dr. Pierce hit it in the nail. Like, they need to remember you, right? The interview finishes and we're going to rank you either at the end of that interview immediately, or 2 months later in a ranking evaluation session that we do just to put in the ranking together. So how am I going to remember you? So the most important thing is introspectively look, what is the thing that I want to be remembered by? What is the thing that I do the best? What is my best quality? What is that thing that makes me unique? What is this specific feature that professionally, this is a professional interview. This is an interview for a job. Always remember this, that you want to be remembered by. So that, you are eloquent to express that. I have a mentoring group, and some of you guys work with me already, and I'm very strict on that aspect of the training. This is your chance, and maybe a US student can have like a mediocre interview and still be remembered. You have to excel at the interview to really show them who you are. And that comes with a lot of introspection, thinking who you are yourself. What are those things that you want to say that you think are best for yourself, so that they get to see them? So if you haven't thought about that about yourself, you're late. You need to be ready to tell me in one sentence, who are you? Why do you want to do this? What is the best quality that you have? What is that thing you have to bring that makes you unique?
I also really quickly wanted to add 2 things. The mirror, like practicing in front of the mirror, it feels very stupid when you like doing it, but do it. It's totally worth it, because you're looking at yourself, you see how you present yourself, you see how your face looks, how your expressions look, because in a different, like, English is not a native language for us, for a lot of us, right? And then your expressions look different. There are a lot of kind of micro things that you will not notice and you will not know unless you look at yourself when you talk. And then I actually recorded myself audio and then played that, which also felt super stupid, but was very beneficial.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on to the next question. How should IMGs address potential red flags in their application, such as training gaps, if asked in an interview?
First, they have to be honest. If there's a gap, there's a reason for it. And we have this gap not only in international applicants, in graduates here for fellowship that now I review their application. They have someone says, okay, my father passed away, or we had someone in family with a problem. I mean, again, as I said, I don't think and I'm fellowship director. I don't think any of us like it very much. But then on the other hand, again, we are all human and happens and we all deal with stress differently. So maybe their father passes away and they have to be off for 2 years, or they have to take a gap. But it has to it has to be for a reason. But sometimes also people are sick, and this is again more reasonable. Someone goes through a sickness or something like that. So it has to be basically described honestly what happened and there was a gap.
And sometimes, like Hannah was just saying, there's these adversities in our lives, and that's what we look at also in our program is how did this person overcome that adversity? And so that can be a strength. So I would say turn it around to make it a strength. So figure that out, what can make that look more solid.
I mean, I see it very common. I see it like that people take a gap due to different reasons a lot, sometimes family members, sometimes themselves.
All right, thank you. And moving on to the last question of this section, do you have any tips for post-interview communication, such as thank you notes and letters of intent?
Oh, that's very interesting. And like now it has changed. So last week we had fellowship interviews and then we were talking about like these thank you letters. And I heard that the recent update is that now nothing is encouraged, which to me is not acceptable. Like to me, if someone doesn't send me a thank you letter, I think probably they are not interested, or they didn't make even the effort to say thank you for your time. But I heard they don't encourage it now, but don't quote me on that. Just make sure if it's like, I think it's appropriate for an applicant to send a thank you letter after the interview. But the same way that now, like as like program directors, we cannot talk to the applicants to see if they are interested or not. And now even they have removed the pictures from application process, so we don't see pictures. So I heard also any communication, like basically they don't encourage, but if I'm not residency program director, so if someone is and they know, so probably it's better to have more accurate information on that, but that's what I've heard.
I have some experiences with that where like I know from where I went, sometimes they don't like it very much, but you can ask, right? Just first consider that if you got offered an interview, you are considered like academically qualified to come to this program. The interview is just a step to know, do I really like you? I don't like you? Like, what are your features to corroborate what I'm reading in this piece of paper where I got to know you, right? So like if you are uncertain, at the end of the day, you take 1 second to ask, is it okay if I send you an email? Is it okay if I communicate after the interview? Would you mind if I send a letter of intent? A lot of people say yes, they'll be honest. Like the best important feature about interviewing and anything is just being honest, being yourself. So ask, like if it's unclear, if it was not put in any of their paperwork or anything, you can ask in interview honestly, and most of the program directors will tell you, hey, well, yes, I appreciate it, thank you, or not really, I already know you want it, like, it's okay, we prefer not to. They'll be able. What I would say, if you're going to do it, is then intentionality, right? That cannot be a generic thing like, oh, thank you so much for having me in your interview, like I've read that letter 300 times. That is boring. That is not useful. It needs to be intentional. If you were able to have a connection with the interviewer about something specific, make sure to mention it. If you have something that was intentional or specific about that program that you like, make sure to mention it. If you have a connection within that program, make sure to make sure it's intentional. It cannot be ChatGPT putting in your letters. It cannot be the same thing we read all the time, right? Everyone in this committee have read multiple personal statements. We've read the same Achilles injury 300 times, and it's the same generic. It cannot be generic. The more personal, still remaining professional. This is a job interview, right? But the more personal, the more I get to know you as a human being, right? I will be able to determine if I can train you and how to shape your training to become a physiatrist. So it has to come with that intentionality, every little thing, including the communications at the end, to say thank you, to say I'm interested, to say I love you so much, please hire me, right? It needs to be very intentional.
Also, you meet the program directors, I apologize, sometimes in conferences, right? You go to conferences, and that's also important to go and again speak to them in person. Just say hi and like again, introduce yourself, or I had interview, or I'm gonna have interview next year, or I'm applying next year, or I'm applying this season. So that also matters.
I am a PGY2 resident, but as Yale, the new program, I was involved in the interviews last year, and I'm a member of the residency selection committee this year. So I've been like reviewing all the applicants, all the applications. So I got like 50% of the I got thank you emails from the 50% of the applicants last year. I think it's a good opportunity for the applicants to remind themselves to the program leadership, because I like when it was the time for ranking, you remember those applicants. Of course, it's not changing the rankings like dramatically, but I think it's a good opportunity for you to remind yourself. As Ricardo mentioned, if it is personalized, if it contains anything that you discuss with the interviewers, with the program director, whoever is the faculty, I think that's a key. So you make an impact on the program leadership.
I agree with Ricardo and Mustafa that it has to be personalized. That way it does stand out to the interviewers. And I have to say, it's almost not quite the same as a signal, because the people who didn't give us the thank yous, we thought, maybe they aren't that interested. And I thought they were, after we got a slew of thank yous. So it was very interesting to see that come along. But I think it's like Vera even put in the comment section, send them. Because it's a great idea. It can't hurt. It can only help you if like you guys mentioned, if it's personalized and you can really reach that interviewer that you liked, or something special that stands out about your application. I think it's only a good bolster.
I will say, maybe everybody else on the panel has had a different experience, but in the, I guess, 5 or 6 years that I've helped with the interview process as a chief resident fellow and now faculty, I would say it's maybe 5 to 10% of the people that I interview send me a thank you letter. So don't think, oh, it's just going to be one of every single person does it. So yeah, I do remember the people who send a thank you letter, just because, whether it's that people are getting messaging that they're not supposed to, or they think it's old fashioned, the vast majority of people who I interview do not reach out.
And I would say they also email too, instead of just old-fashioned letters. So emails are just as good, I think, if they're personalized.
Yeah. I still remember, even as a fellow, when I was a fellow and we did interview for like pediatric rehab fellowship, I was at NYU. I still remember those who emailed me as a fellow, even thanking me. And I, as a fellow, when I did interview myself, I remember I was sending thank you email to everyone, all the faculty whom I did interview with, even the coordinator, and also the fellows who were involved. So as you said, I remember like everyone who has sent me email, but like recently, it seems, if my understanding was that because I always got them, that now if we don't get them, like again, maybe they are not interested, maybe they don't want to even spend 2 minutes time. But I've heard now that maybe it's not encouraged again, so I'm not sure. Maybe they think of that.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for the input, especially around this time of the year. I'm going to shift now to the career choice and pathway questions as a build up on these questions. What motivated you to pursue a career in the United States, and how did you decide it was the right decision for you?
That's becomes very personal. For some of us, it's like I'm sure we all love our countries, but we live for different reasons. For some could be economics, for some could be political, for some it could be just like a more like freedom, or like different reasons. So I think it's very personal why we want to come here. It's like
I would agree with Dr. Azizi. This is a very personal question, and everybody has a different reason. But what I would say about that is, because we are in a job interview, if you're asked about that, just use your more professional way to respond to that question, right? If you have a personal reason why you decided to come to the United States, just make sure that that's clear, but stay like in the professional sense, right? So there's family situations that brought me to the United States that were like, it was just situational. I got married, like life happened and I just ended up here. So I'm trying to pursue my career, refocus that into the reason why you want to do rehab and why specifically you want to come to this program, right? Don't let a question that can become personal unveil personal things about you within a job interview, because this is a job interview. You're interviewing for probably one of the most important jobs you'll ever have, which is the one that opens the gate for you to work in this country and do what you love with passion and grow into this beautiful field that we all love to do. But this could be tricky even to be asked for ourselves. Like I can hear sit, and I wouldn't mind sit down and talk about my personal history, and I love those kind of things, but staying in the sense of the professionalism of the interview and the understanding of the process to apply. If you think any question, not just about why you're coming to the US, is personal, it's always best to go back to the professional sense and find a way to answer that within what's expected in a job interview, right? So you can give a reason that is related to your personal life, but keep it professional and move on to explain what you're looking for of being here in that more professional sense, like the opportunities for research, the great opportunities for different fields within the specialty, right? Like there's many other things that are unique to the career development within the United States that it might be what you're looking for. So just that professionalism is extremely important, because this interview is very short. You have a very small amount of time with each one of these interviewers, and you don't want it to be like talking about your life here, like the latest tea. This is not this kind of interview. It needs to stay professional, remain professional.
I think also it's an appropriate question to be asked overall. I honestly think when I did my residency, one of the attendings actually asked me why you came here. And at that time also, I felt awkward, like why you're asking me why you came to US. She was also international. And then for the same reason that you came. But again, as Ricardo said, then we have to stay professional, but I think that it shouldn't be asked why you came to US. It's a very loaded question. I hope they stopped asking this question, why you came,
Yeah, I think they're not stopping, because I got that question almost all my interview, like every interview, there will be someone asking me why you come here from China. So I think I agree with all the answer, but also always remember, be positive, because everybody's experience cannot be like all like successful, smooth. But you can share some personal story, but the end of that story, you need to be positive. Like everybody wanna have someone that is positive no matter what kind of pressure you are in, because residency is pretty stressful overall. And I also want to share sometimes how I handle the question. I would talk about the quality and training in the US, especially compared to my home country. I feel like trainee here is more treated as a person. Your attending goes very well with you, get along with you very well. Like me with Dr. Azizi, we talk not just during working hours, but also off hours, and she buy me meals, she invite me to restaurant. That's a very healthy relationship between you as a trainee and your trainer. And I never regret come here, get training. I only been into residency for like 3 months, but I already feel there's tons of education going on every day. The attending cares that students pay their tuition to work in the inpatient or clinic. That is the time they need to do education. So that's a very good reason that you want to be trained in the US. If something personal is not that good to share, then yeah, the quality of the training.
Very quick add-on. I think the answers can be like very personal, but everyone should be ready for those two questions, like why United States, and why PM&R?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. And for the sake of time, I am just going to go through the Q&A box and make sure I tackle some of the questions in there. There's a question from Nathan asking, given the recent change to 20 signals, I'm curious how each program is interpreting their value. Do you anticipate still extending interviews to non-signaled applicants who may have qualities or experiences that align well with the program's missions?
I want to start tackling a little bit of that since I've been closely related to those discussions through AAP, PM&R. Most program directors are considering signaling very seriously. So most, I'm saying most, not everyone, but most program directors won't interview you if you haven't signaled them. And that especially rise after last year where there were less, right? And they gathered at AAP and discussed among them, and they considered that having a higher number will be beneficial for the applicants to express their interest in the program. Again, individualization, right? If you signal a program, that means you want to go there. You know who they are. You know what they do. You know what they bring. You know what you can bring to them, right? So they are more comfortable to call you in and try to get to know you to see if you're a good fit to come for us to train you, right? So most programs, unfortunately, I think fortunately, will not consider you out of the signaling. There are a few who have said publicly, and you can look into this, who are saying that they won't, that they will look outside the signaling. But I would say be very, very smart about your signaling because they have all agreed. They went to a meeting, they talked about it, and they are thinking it's the best way, right? So for the ones reviewing, most likely, we've made that decision of moving forward mostly only with the one signal. So just keep that in mind.
But how do you then choose? Sorry, when I was interviewing, there was no signal. So then how do you choose as an IMG? You're applying for clearly more than 10. So how do you choose the ones that you know that accept IMGs? And then you kind of won't be like Norman who matched to Harvard because that's a rare thing to do? Or like what's your advice, Ricardo?
It's really difficult, I honestly think. But nowadays, the information is way more available. They are like putting statements in their social media. They're putting information out to let you know that they're using this tool, right? Not only that they're using this tool intentionally to let to filter the application. Like again, a lot of what this is to give you a perspective what happens on the other side, right? So like we were getting 600, 700 applications. So this was a tool for us to get less applications so that we can really do a more holistic review, right? If I am the program director and I got 700, it's going to be extremely difficult for me to get to the real candidates that I want to train. But if they're signaling me, they're telling me they want to come to me, I get to really read those or pay more attention to look for those specific things that align with the mission of my institution. If my institution is very strong in the outpatient setting, if my institution is very strong with the community sense because we serve an underserved community, I'm going to look for those candidates who have that specific alignment with my application, and I'm going to try to bring them in to serve my community, right? I'm supposed to be the one bringing this physiatrist to train them, but also to serve the community that I serve in my population. So it plays to that dual role. It's very difficult, but you should be looking for those things in their websites, in their social media, as you reach out to their faculty, to their trainees, to their people, to understand how they're using this tool and to dig in, who are matching these IMGs, who have that, more understanding of the process so that you get better chances. It is very difficult, yes it is, but also will help to have a more transparent and holistic review of your application, which would also give you better chances.
Yeah, so I just went through the application process last year. So bad news, also good news, is that not many programs are interviewing IMG. You can actually go on the Residency Explorer. They share every year's data. You download the data. You can see what's their percentage of interview goes to IMG applicants. You just rank from the higher to lower, then you have your answer. Actually, last year, I only applied to 40 programs, and 10 of them never interviewed any IMG in the past 2 years. So I have very low hope in them. And I get 0 from those 10 programs. So I would say whether they interviewed an IMG in the past 2 years is a good indicator. Of course, there's leadership change, policy change. Some program might start not offering any visa. That is something you might get information from, like Discord, spreadsheet. So you need to stay close to IMG group, like our pathway in PM&R. Yeah.
And our program will extend interviews to those who don't signal, but with the rankings, we definitely pay attention to who signaled us. So you might get pushed in the very end of that ranking because the signal wasn't there. Because that means that, hey, you're interested in our specific program, you're interested in staying in New Mexico for our specific program. We really look at that as very important and high on priority for our program. We want to retain people here. We don't have 700 in New York like you do, Ricardo, but only 600. No, I'm just kidding.
The numbers can vary a lot depending in certain places, but it's tough, you know. And
absolutely, and you need some type of filter, like you were saying before, and that acts as a filter. If they want your program, they're going to signal you.
And I just want to give them perspective, like, you know, like we want to take you, like at least where I went to residency and what I will be working is a mission of Montefiore. And I would say this with the transparency that I've talked to my program director, who like I work very closely with, is a mission of Montefiore to match IMGs. We want them. We've trained amazing IMGs like Dr. Azizi, who make us proud, you know, who are very important people in the world of PM&R now. And so our leadership looks into the IMGs actively, and it's very important to us, right? So if we have people signaling us that have that intentionality, it's going to be even better. So the changes in the system of filtering, it's something that we cannot view as something negative. And you can say it even without IMGs. If you are an extremely qualified applicant who has tons of research, who wants to be a researcher physiatrist for the future, like Norman, right? You will be applying to programs who have great research resources and great research experience so that they can enhance you. You will bring your experience towards them and they will be able to make the best physiatrist out of you, right? So it is bidirectional in the same sense, right? If I want to be a pediatric physiatrist, I will probably be applying to those programs that have pediatric rehabilitation because I want to have that experience, right? I want to be able to determine if that's exactly what I want to do. Maybe I'm not certain, right? But I want to have that experience. And so I want to increase that, right? If I know the pain program where I'm going is extremely strong and I want to be a pain doctor, I'm going to try to apply to those who have a very big pain program so that my application is better. Individualization, personalization makes the difference in this cycle where things are getting harder. It's the key.
I'm not sure if we spoke about that, but doing an observership always helps. Find, as Norman was saying, that like places that they are more IMG friendly, are more likely to take international graduates, and then try to do an observership with them. A rotation with them, it helps for them to know you.
Yes, 100%, like 100%. you would be interviewed at the programs that you were an observer, or I mean, at least you have a chance. So it's yeah. The
Because
more
otherwise, as great as most of us are in the international graduates, they don't know us. And again, we could have different barriers. It could be visa, it could be our graduation year, or many other reasons. So it's good for them to know us closer.
Yeah, personal experience. I also did 4 weeks of rotation at Montefiore. I had a very great experience. Every attending understand my needs, understand my experience, curious about my whole story. And because they have experience with IMG, they never had problem with visa. So go to those great programs to do your rotation, elective, observership, whatever. Yeah, a great idea.
Well, again and again, thank you so much for such amazing insights from all our speakers. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. As we close, please take a minute to complete our feedback survey as shared by Amy on the screen. And thank you again to Amy for helping us organize this, AAP, all our guest speakers, the Pathway and PM&R IMG committee, and of course, all the attendees tonight. We really wish you the best in the future and have a great, wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
everyone.
great night.
Feel
Thank
free
you.
to reach out if you need to connect or if you want to
Yes.
talk. Paul would have our contacts, at least to me. Feel free to reach out. I'm always happy.
Thank you, everyone. Reach out to
Thank
your
you.
PM&R who is coming, or AP. Just say hi if you see us around. We don't bite. We're trying to help you. So please come and say hi and reach out.
Bye.
But good luck, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you, all
Good to
the
see you.
panelists.
Good to see you guys. Norman, good to see you. Emily.
Thank you for joining, everybody.